This is just a quick video to show a technique to somebody who's asked me how to pick up stitches from Icord when creating an Icord piping. Here I've got, it's a little swatch, it's just some scrap stitches, something I was working on earlier. I've done some applied Icord in white yarn, so I picked up stitches using white yarn. I knitted a row of white yarn first before doing the applied Icord, and I'm applying the Icord from the wrong side. So it's a standard applied Icord, so knit 2 stitches, slip 1 knitwise, knit a stitch, pass the slip stitch over, then return the 3 Icord stitches to the passive needle, then knit 2, so I'm just finishing this Icord here, slip a stitch knitwise, knit 1, pass the slip stitch over, and then return 3 stitches, all 3 Icord stitches to the passive needle. Then this is the final row of Icord, knit 2, slip 1 knitwise, knit a stitch, the final stitch, this case, pass the slip stitch over that stitch, and then we're going to cast off those stitches. So I'll just pass the 3 stitches to my passive needle, so knit 2 stitches, pass the first stitch over the second stitch, knit the 3rd stitch, pass the second stitch over that stitch, and then we could break off the yarn, or we could do well, I'm going to break off that yarn in fact and slip it through that final stitch. So there we are. This is the right side. Well, I've designated this as the right side in this piece of work, and you can see there's like a little gap there because we worked the Icord from the wrong side. And this method for picking up stitches for Icord that I'm going to show you is going to tighten that gap up so that the Icord will stand out nicely. So this is the wrong side that we're looking at here, and these stitch edges here that I'm just pointing my needle to, that's the furthest side of each stitch that was slipped when you were making the Icord. So you slipped a stitch and you passed that stitch over the stitch that you knitted after it, and that there, these here, that's a slipped stitch, the slipped stitch that was passed over the stitch that you knitted after slipping it. And then this here is the nearest side of that slip stitch to the wrong side stitches, the nearest edge of that slip stitch to these wrong side stitches, and that's the edge that you pick up to knit from when you're picking up stitches from the Icord to carry on knitting away from the Icord. So here we are, pass my needle through, hang on, let me get some yarn, and knit that edge of that stitch. So the next one, push the needle into it. So I'm pushing the needle away from the Icord down towards the wrong side stitches through that edge of that slip stitch. That's 2 stitches, then point the needle, poke the needle under that edge of that final slip stitch edge and knit it. So basically we're picking up that edge of that stitch, that slipped stitch, to knit it. Pick it up and knit it, pick it up and knit it, and repeat that all the way along your Icord for every stitch that you've got, every row I should say, that you've got in the Icord, because each of these slip stitches is the end of the row of Icord. Right, I think I can stop there and show you what that's done, that's nicely tightened up the I-cord there, so that gap that I showed you earlier has now nicely closed, and having picked up those edges of those stitches and knitted them, that makes a nice firm piping with the I-cord. That's it. Thank you very much.